Whether you want to admit it or not, there's a good chance the modern international tokusatsu fanbase wouldn't exist without Power Rangers. Many of today's Sentai fans looked into the franchise because of their love for Power Rangers as kids.
Despite appearances, Kamen Rider arguably has an equal, if not larger, global audience than Sentai.
Unlike Sentai, Kamen Rider has only been adapted for a Western audience twice. The first attempt was Saban's Masked Rider, which flopped. I made a video about it last year. The second attempt was Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. While Dragon Knight wasn't a huge commercial success, it still became a cult classic with a very passionate fan base.
Some people even argue that it's better than the original Japanese show, Ryuki.
Is Dragon Knight better than Ryuki?
No way. The Japanese version is always better.
Why did you follow me in here?
Well, I need to shave once in a while too, you know.
Why do you need to shave? Aren't you a god beast mecha thing?
I am 1/5 woolly mammoth, which is a mammal, you ignorant jerk.
Alright, I'm sorry. I'll try to be less close-minded.
Now that my arms are hairless and fancy-free, I'm ready to explain why everything you think is wrong.
Today, we're talking about Dragon Knight and Ryuki. It's time for a transformation sequence. Let's ride. While both shows are over 10 years old now, I'm still giving spoiler warnings. If you haven't finished watching either Ryuki or Dragon Knight, this video contains spoilers for both shows. I guess we should start with Kamen Rider Ryuki. Ryuki is the third series in the Heisei era. For those who might not know, after Kamen Rider Black RX finished airing in 1989, Kamen Rider disappeared from television.
There were still films and specials, just no yearly TV series.
In 2000, Kamen Rider came back with a vengeance with Kamen Rider Kuga. The period between the first Kamen Rider and Kamen Rider Black RX is referred to as the Showa era in reference to the Showa Emperor. The era from 2000 to 2019, starting with Kuga and ending with Gyo, is referred to as the Heisei era.
There are further subdivisions, but we don't need to get into that.
Ryuki is a difficult series for me. There's so much of it that I love. It has a dark tone, but isn't gritty and heavy-handed. The central conflict for Shinji is that he's trying to have a black and white morality in a world that is gray and distorted.
While Ryuki is generally bleak, it's not without its fun moments.
What I like best about Ryuki is that there are few characters that are straight up evil. Yeah, there are some assholes who exist so that we have easy to identify antagonists, but then you also have characters like Emperor and Zolda who have very relatable motivations. Zolda is dying from illness and Emperor is trying to get out of his sad, monotonous life.
So where would you rate Ryuki on your list of favorite series?
I'm not comfortable giving numbered rankings, but it would probably be around number 4 or 5. Its greatest strength is also one of its greatest weaknesses, the mystery box. It's easy to get hooked on Ryuki because the mystery of what happened to Shiro Kanzaki and why he needs the Kamen Riders to kill each other is really compelling. And then the big twist that Yui died as a child and was replaced by her mirror self is beautifully tragic. Shiro's willingness to condemn strangers to death to keep some form of his sister alive in the world is dark and brutal in all the best ways.
So why exactly does Shiro need the Kamen Riders to kill each other?
I have absolutely no idea.
Well, how did Mirror Yui cross over? Does everyone have a mirror version who can cross over?
I have absolutely no idea.
Well, even if exact details about the world are left frustratingly vague, it's all fine as long as the conclusion is dramatically satisfying.
Yeah, about that. So, after the end of Ryuki, I think everyone who died comes back to life, I guess?
How does that happen?
Yui wishes it, I think? Like, Ren gets his wish, and then Yui and Shiro talk, and it's a really beautiful scene, but I guess Yui and Shiro use their mirror powers to undo the plot of the show? It's weird.
Didn't they make a movie that changed the ending?
The movie ends with Ren and Shinji just standing there deciding what to do as the world crumbles around them.
That sounds kind of cool, but it doesn't really conclude the story, does it?
Not really. While there are a lot of things to love about Ryuki, it doesn't seem like there was much of a solid ending in place or planned before the series started filming. So the intriguing mystery that's at the center of everything has a pretty lame resolution, and that unfortunately keeps it from being one of my more favorite series.
Even if it's not one of your most favorite series, you can't deny that it's one of the most important to the franchise.
Huh. I guess a lot of people liked it, and it helped the Heisei era cement itself as a staple of pop culture in Japan.
Yes, but Ryuki was more important for a couple of reasons. It helped propel the careers of some of modern tokusatsu's most impressive figures.
Really? Like who?
Well, like... Hey, did something just move in the mirror?
Nah, it was probably just the wind.
Are you kidding me?
Wind does weird stuff to mirrors. I read it online somewhere.
You know what? You deserve whatever happens next. As with any film or television series, there is a large list of people behind the scenes who made it possible. For the purposes of this analysis, we're going to narrow it down to 3. Yasuko Kobayashi, Shinichiro Shirakura, and Naomi Takabe.
I've never heard of any of these people.
Without these individuals, Sentai and Kamen Rider as we know it today may not exist. Let's start with Kobayashi, the head writer for Ryuki.
With all the debate that's been going on about having more female writers, it's a bit ironic that one of the franchise's most significant writers is a woman.
Kobayashi's earliest writing credits are for Win Spectre and Jan Person. She also wrote episodes of Juko B Fighter and B Fighter Kabuto, which were the basis for Beetleborgs and Metallics. Her earliest credit as a head writer is for Gingaman. She also served as the head writer for Time Ranger before writing anything for Kamen Rider.
Ah, so she was already experienced and accomplished by the time she was hired to write Ryuki.
Yes. She wrote an episode of Agito where she also worked with Shirakura and Takabe. She has certain patterns and concepts she likes to reuse that first show up in Ryuki.
Such as...
The hero gets his powers by making some sort of contract with an agent related to the primary villain. Our hero's optimism gets tested time and time again, but in the end their ability to see the good in others is what saves them and their friends.
Wait, she was the head writer for O's and Den-O? I love those shows!
She was also the head writer for the net series, Amazons. In addition, she was also the head writer for Go Busters and Tokyuger. Her most notable contribution to Sentai is probably as the head writer for Shinkenger. Outside of her work as a head writer, she has writing credits on many series of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. She has also written for anime such as Death Note and Attack on Titan.
I'm surprised I haven't heard more about her. I've seen her name dropped now and again, but I had no idea she was this prolific.
Naomi Takabe is another important woman in tokusatsu. She started off in the merchandising and sales department, but was later moved to the TV and production planning department. Her earliest toku credit is as a vice producer in the Kamen Rider Ultraman crossover. She was a vice producer on both Agito and Ryuki. She would continue being a vice producer all the way up through Den-O. She would then be a producer for Kiva, and eventually O's and Gaim, where she was partially responsible for increasing the amount of items that were marketable as toys. Takabe has also worked as a producer on Sentai with Go Busters and Ninja.
That is an impressive resume. So, who's the third person you mentioned?
Shinichiro Shirakura is Toei's director of planning and production, and has been since 2012. His earliest credit as a producer is, again, for Agito. He was also Ryuki's producer, and has produced several other series as well. He served most recently as the producer for Gyo.
Damn, a lot of important people worked on Ryuki. It must have been a really popular series when it aired.
It had some backlash for straying too much from the formula, but according to TV Nihon, its ratings are on par with other series of the time. Ryuki's influence on Kamen Rider is undeniable. It was the first series to have a wide cast of riders, not just 2 or 3. It was also the first to introduce a collectible gimmick, the decks. You didn't just need the belt to transform anymore, you also needed accessories to go with it. Cards would be used in later seasons such as Blade and Decade. Heisei Rider is often cited as being among the more mature of tokusatsu programming, and while it's debatable how much of that is because of Ryuki, it was one of the first Rider series to question what it truly meant to be a hero. It showed kids that sometimes good people can do selfish and terrible things for understandable and relatable reasons. Kobayashi, Takabe, and Shirakura would work together in different combinations over the years, but other than Ryuki, the only other show that all 3 worked on was Den-O. Well, Kobayashi did write episodes for Decade, but she wasn't the lead writer.
I'm not going to change my opinion on Ryuki as a series. It's never going to be one of my favorite Rider shows, but I do respect what it was trying to do, and I'm grateful for the impact it had on the shows that I do love.
So you admit defeat, then? There's absolutely no way Dragon Knight's legacy even comes close to Ryuki.
Well, maybe not. But the fact that Dragon Knight has such a devoted fan base means that it had a powerful impact on the people who watched it. That's worth exploring. Ugh, damn wind. I'm gonna go close the window.
It's not the wind, you idiot. Something is coming into this world from the mirror.
Well, that was unexpected. Screamo! It's been like 2 years. Honestly, we kind of just forgot about you.
Stop being so nonchalant. He's a monster.
Oh, come on. What's he gonna do? He's always been harmless.
Nielzabub?
Kamen Rider Dragon Knight is awesome! Have you seen the fight scenes? They're like pow and bam and yeah!
No. Turn him back this instant. This is going to be annoying.
You want to know what's great about Dragon Knight? Well, I'm about to lay it out for you, so pay attention.
You do that, and I'll Google how to fix this.
First of all, the plot of Ryuki, it's too complicated. If you're going to do something for children, have a simple bad guy that's easy for them to understand. Kids need a simple story.
I'll agree to an extent. An overly complex story isn't necessarily great. A simple story done well can be much more valuable, but that attitude is a little insulting to children, isn't it?
Kids want action! Just look at this!
That is actually really impressive fight choreography.
This show won a Daytime Emmy for its stunt work. Also, while they used footage from Ryuki, they filmed a lot of original footage to match the story they were telling.
It is really jarring to watch old episodes of MMPR and hear Zordon give some cheap hand wave of a line to explain why everyone was suddenly in a different location.
On top of that, they took characters that were exclusive to the movies and specials and made them part of the main story. Kamen Rider Siren is to this day probably still the best female rider. Valkyrie is the only one that comes even close. Also, check out that transformation sequence. It's awesome! It's big and bombastic. It makes the transformation feel much more powerful than in Ryuki.
You know, you are actually making some really good points, and why is that shot lingering on her butt?
Because that's the pocket where she was keeping her deck.
Yeah, but that seems a little gratuitous. Isn't this a kid's show?
Man, don't be like that. You're always coming down on me.
Now that my arms are hairless and fancy-free, I'm ready to explain why everything you think is wrong. Why did we just have a flashback? That happened less than 10 minutes ago.
It's important the audience understands the events I'm referring to.
They can figure it out. You don't need to waste so much screen time recapping previous events. Wait a second. Just how much of this show is characters brooding while remembering things we all saw, like, last episode?
Kids have short memories. We need to make sure they don't get lost so they can enjoy a complex narrative.
I thought the whole point of making the plot a straightforward, evil alien bad guy wants to conquer us story was to make things easier for kids. This is just needless and insulting. If you want to review the story, that's the whole point of recaps at the beginning.
Last time on Kamen Rider Dragon Knight.
This show was already doing that every episode. It doesn't need the constant barrage of flashbacks.
It was the late 2000s. It was a different time.
But Power Rangers had been doing serialized storytelling since 1998 with In Space. Kids weren't having trouble following that.
Why do you need to nitpick everything? Can't you just turn off your brain and enjoy what you see on screen?
That's it. I've had it with this. Overthinking children's programming is why you made this show in the first place. Ha! Got it.
Man, I can't believe Daizyujin just yelled at me like that.
Overthinking children's programming is why you made this show in the first place. No, you are not having a flashback to something that just happened. I won't allow it. If you want to counter the effects of a mirror monster, the affected target must look in a mirror and say, "You are not me." Huh. How can I trick Nielzabub into doing that? I must come up with something that's clever, manipulative, and stealthy. Nielzabub?
What?
I'll give you $20 if you look in the mirror and say, "You are not me."
Deal. You are not me.
Are you back to normal?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Do you need some time?
No, I'm fine. Let's just get back to it, please. Dragon Knight is a very flawed show. It has some pacing issues that are exacerbated by abusing flashbacks to increase an episode's runtime. Because of this, a lot of plot that could have been introduced earlier gets shoehorned in the last 10 episodes or so. The series finale is mostly a recap of the entire series, which is weird. Despite that, I had a good time watching Dragon Knight. It's clear that a lot of passion and love was put into it.
The main creative force behind the show was its executive producer, Steve Wong.
Steve Wong actually has a really impressive work history. Did you know that he designed The Predator? Yeah, the executive producer of Dragon Knight is the guy who came up with the iconic design of one of cinema's most memorable monsters when he was about 20 years old.
Wait, what?
Yeah, if you type Steve Wong into Google, you'll get a lot of interviews and stories about his creature designs for films such as Beetlejuice and Hellboy. He was a student of Stan Winston. Dragon Knight wasn't even his first Toku project. He produced the 2 Guyver movies, which are also cult classics. He designed the suit of Dragon Knight's big bad Xaviex on his own time.
I never would have made that connection.
Most of the interviews online with him are about his makeup work and creature designs and don't bring up Dragon Knight. But he did do an interview with Garage Pro Hero last year that gave some good insight. He stated specifically that he thought Ryuki was too mature. He didn't think kids could follow it. While Dragon Knight was being made, the Heisei era of Kamen Rider was less than 10 years old. Wong had been a fan of the Showa era. He wanted to have a simple good versus evil storyline because that's the kind of story he grew up on and liked.
That is admirable, and I can respect his decision. That being said, I think people underestimate children's intelligence.
Children do need straightforward narratives where what is right and what is wrong is clearly defined. Stealing is wrong. Hurting people is wrong. You should be kind to others. Good can conquer evil.
But as children get older and start to form social groups, they need to understand that people are a bit more complicated.
We're all the heroes of our own stories, and this is also true of children. In my own experience as a teacher, I've had to teach them that just because someone is doing something you don't like, doesn't mean that they're bad. If someone hurts you on accident, they didn't do it because they're evil. That's all just part of being human. While Steve Wong had a lot of experience with film, Dragon Knight was his first attempt at a TV series. In his interview with Garage Pro Hero, he stated that they had to rewrite the first 26 episodes when they realized it was too ambitious for their budget and schedule. But they still put all their passion and love into the project. Dragon Knight really is a great blueprint and starting point for how to adapt Kamen Rider for an international audience.
Passion and love, unfortunately, just aren't always enough. Because of low ratings and toy sales, Dragon Knight was cancelled before its final 2 episodes were aired. Fortunately, they were put up online.
Because of its poor initial reception, Dragon Knight got a really bum deal. To this day, it's never gotten an official DVD release in the States. And so, if you want to watch it, you're going to have to pirate it.
While Dragon Knight didn't do so well in the West, it was actually quite popular in Japan. It even got a DVD release over there.
Are you kidding me?
Nope. The actor who played Ren in Ryuki voices his American counterpart Len in the dub.
That's awesome!
It even has its own opening, Dive into the Mirror, which is pretty good and captures the tone Dragon Knight was going for fairly well.
While it got low ratings during its run, Dragon Knight has seen a resurgence of popularity recently. Stephen Ford, the actor who played the main character Kid, is very active on Twitter and has a pretty cool YouTube channel you can check out.
Why do you think this resurgence in popularity has happened?
For starters, everyone's mental state was shattered by recent world events, and so Dragon Knight's unambiguous morality was a much-needed comfort for Toku fans that were living in lockdown.
On top of that, Ryuki was nearly 20 years ago, so people aren't as critical about Dragon Knight's differences.
It's kind of like how when Power Rangers Samurai was airing, it got a lot of flack for being too similar to Shinkanger. But kids at the time who didn't know anything about Shinkanger didn't care. And when they got older, they still didn't care.
It would be nice if there was a way for international Toku fans to legally watch Dragon Knight.
Toei is the current holder of the rights. If only there was some sort of platform Toei controlled whose sole purpose was to make tokusatsu more accessible for an international audience. Dragon Knight would be a perfect addition for something like that.
Unfortunately, an idea that crazy is something out of science fiction. So, between Ryuki and Dragon Knight, which series is better?
Well, this answer might seem like a bit of a cop-out, but neither one. I really love the complex world and characters of Ryuki, but the conclusion just isn't a satisfying payoff to me. Meanwhile, I really like the choreography of the fight scenes in Dragon Knight, and I do appreciate that I don't need to look anything up online to fully understand the plot, but it does suffer from some basic pacing and storytelling issues.
So what you're saying is that both Ryuki and Dragon Knight have strengths and weaknesses that will appeal to different people based on their personal preferences. Yeah, that is a cop-out.
Both shows are worth your time, and if you have the opportunity to watch both, you should, and see which one you like best for yourself.
Don't you need to transform?
It's okay. I've got this. You know, I actually missed you. I didn't think you had anything left to give, but just like that, I was proven wrong. This episode is finished. We're done. No, I'm not gonna kill you. I don't see the point. I appreciate the challenge you gave me. So, just leave, come back with something new, and I'll be ready for you.
That was very diplomatic of you.
There's enough violence and conflict in the television shows that we watch. If we can avoid bringing that crap into the real world, we should.
Well, I suppose that's all for now.
And as always, may the power protect you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you were rocking out to our awesome new intro music, that was provided to us by the fine folks at the Mostly Speakin' Sentai podcast and Marshland Media. Links to follow them are in the description below. Kamen Rider Ryuki will soon be available legally with English subtitles through Shout Factory TV. If you're interested in giving it a look, please try to support the official release.